but then they turned from God. It's the same story over and over. It's like a wheel just rolling down a hill. It's a record on skip. Boop, boop, boop. Same thing, just keeps on spinning. That's what the whole book's about. The story of Judges is about the sin cycle of the children of Israel, just nonstop for 400 years. And we get to read various accounts of various judges that God raises up to try to get these people back on track. One of the things I learned in studying this book and in preparing this lesson is God does not always remove temptation from us. You know, back to the Garden of Eden. There's the tree. Leave it alone. The tree didn't have to be there. He could put a wall around it. He could have built the garden somewhere else. So why did God leave the tree there? God doesn't always remove temptation from us. The Lord was angry with Israel and said, because this nation has violated the covenant that I laid down for their forefathers and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their forefathers did. You know, a temptation is a tool. And it doesn't have to be for bad, but it can be for good. For example, let's just say somebody came in and put an idol right there. Boom! When I walk by, am I tempted to worship that idol? Not at all. It's not even a temptation. Now, to some people, and in some parts of the world, they see it as a god, and they don't want to walk by it without paying it some respect. To them, it might be a temptation. So how can it be a temptation to one person and not the other? Temptations are subjective. They're intrinsic to the person, not to the item. Different people get tempted over different things. Look, a 5-pound bag of crack cocaine. Are you tempted, Steve? No. I'm tempted to throw it down the toilet instead of calling the cops, but I'm not tempted at all. To some other people, it's like, whoa. So what's wrong with the baggie? Nothing. It's not the baggie. It's the person who interacts with the baggie. It's the person who interacts with the idol. Temptations are within us. They're not out there. There are no temptations out there, people. They're all in here. But a temptation can be a test, a tool for success or failure. God doesn't put them out there so that we'll stumble over them. He puts them out there to give us an opportunity for victory. That's what they're there for, to give us an opportunity to succeed and overcome, not so we'll trip. Listen, blessed is the man who endures temptation, James 1, verses 12. For when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Blessed is the man who overcomes temptation. Temptations are an opportunity to be blessed by God. Lord, lay out the crack cocaine. I'll step all over it. Give me an opportunity to succeed. We look at temptations all the wrong way. We see them and we're like, oh, don't hurt me, don't hurt me. Kick it. Beat it up. Overcome it. Next temptation that comes your way, say, thank you, God, for another opportunity to show you that I love you more than that. Do you know you can rename a temptation? Just call it an idol. Temptations don't need to trip us up or stress us out. We can totally overcome them and use them as a source of victory. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. Therefore, my dear friends, flee from idolatry. People come up to me so many times and said, Steve, the scripture says God won't put a temptation there that I can't handle. I can't handle this one, Steve. Yes, you can. God just said you can. But I can't. Yes, you can. He didn't say it'd be easy. He said with the temptation, he'd provide a way out. Everybody who comes up to me crying about their temptation never takes the out. The door is open right there. We'll just put over the door, flee from temptation. It's an open door, not even locked, not even closed. And they'll go to the door. I can't resist this one. I can't. I'm like, you can. Leave. Well, I don't want to leave. Well, why are you crying to me for then? See, because sometimes the temptation is close to or tied to something we like. It's our idol. Maybe it's your job. The boss keeps wanting you to lie and cook the books, and you know it's wrong, but it pays so good. How's your way out? Quit! But then I won't have a job. You trust God or don't you? Quit! If it's a temptation, just go up to your boss and say no. Well, then I'm going to fire you. Good, then I'll turn you over to the FBI. Do I still have a job? Yes, you do. Thank you. There are ways of dealing with things. You don't have to cave. You know? Temptations are only problematic when our hearts are in the wrong place. James 1:13. Let no one say when he's tempted, I'm tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when he's drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it's full grown, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. So let's go back to the bag of crack cocaine. And let's say you're a recovering addict. And you walk by and you go, your gears are going, there's a bag of crack cocaine, and there's nobody around. I could take that bag right now. Of course, I'd fall back off the wagon and ruin my life again, but man, that looks good. And it's free, and there's a lot of it. I could sell it. No, that would be wrong. At what point does it become sin? Right now, it's not sin. He's debating it in his own soul. That debate is not sin, people. When he says no, he's overcome. When he grabs it, then it becomes sin. Struggling with an issue is not sin. It's when you give in that it becomes sin. Don't think that your struggles with evil are bad. Your struggles with evil are good. You're fighting. You're struggling. That's good. Just don't quit. Don't lose the battle. So you should ask yourself, is there something tempting you right now? Is there an idol in your life? Something that you're struggling with that you need to overcome? One of the really wonderful things about God is when we come across these temptations, they become an opportunity for victory. But what if we don't overcome? What if we fail? God doesn't pull the plug on us and throw us away. He uses the failure as an additional incentive to overcome. That's exactly what goes on in the book of Judges. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their forefathers did. Well, what if they don't? Eventually, Israel got so bad in its history that God expelled them from the land. And listen to what he says. This is the prophecy that it could happen in Deuteronomy 28. The Lord will scatter you among all the nations from one end of the earth to the other. There you will worship other gods. Gods of wood and stone, which neither you nor your fathers have known. For those of you on my email list, now you know what I'm talking about. I sent out an email. And in the email it said, God actually enabled Israel to worship false gods. You want to know the answer? Come to services on Saturday. So if you're not on my email list, get on it. Join our website. This is what I meant. Well, why would God do that? He says, I'm going to send you. You want to worship false gods? Have your fill. Worship away. Enjoy. Be careful. You might get what you ask for. And God will do that. You know, my stepfather was not a good man. he was a lousy father and a bad person. But he taught us a lesson once that I'll never forget. We were probably, I don't know, I was probably 5, my sister was probably 3. I mean, we were really young. And we had an interest in cigarettes. Why? Because they smoked. So he says, you want to try it? Here. So he let us try it. Out of those 3 children, 2 of them never smoked. We had another one, he didn't smoke. So 3 out of 4 never smoked. Because we wanted to smoke, he let us smoke. My sister got sick and threw up. We were coughing our brains out. That's fun. It was a bad approach, but it did its job. You want a cigarette? Here, have a cigarette. This isn't fun. You want to worship some false gods? Here, have some false gods. Sometimes the best thing God can do is let people fully and completely be immersed in their sin, hoping they will be disgusted with it and turn from it. Let me read to you a very similar concept from Drugscom. This is a forum of people dealing with drug addiction and helping one another out. This is what one of the people wrote. And the question went something like, somebody I love is just addicted to drugs, it's driving me nuts, what can I do? That kind of thing. Basically, here's the answer. All you can do is let them do what they think they need to do. Let them suffer the consequences of it. Mine's getting the hint now. He's stressing all day about how to get pills and money, while I go get my nails done, go out to eat, have fun. I don't provide him with money for his habit, and he knows full well that I'll leave before I cover his half of the bills. I've never asked him to quit, but now that he's feeling the crunch and the stress of it all on his own, without me feeling it with him, he's coming around. He called himself a junkie yesterday without me saying a word, and has started asking me how I got off the pills. I haven't pressured him in any way, and now he's talking like he wants to quit. Here's another one. It's called Practicing Detachment from addictionandfamily.com. Another thing that you can do to help a struggling addict is to detach from them emotionally. This is difficult and might seem counterintuitive to some people, but in the long run, it's the best behavior that you can display in order to move the addict closer to change. This idea is to still care for and about the person without rescuing them from their own natural consequences. In other words, no more bailing them out of jail or trying to cover for them when they screw up really bad. Sometimes we have to back off and let them skin their knee a few times in order to learn a lesson. You can never deny an addict of their pain. They will always find a way to self-destruct if that is their mission. Detachment is about letting them do this without becoming emotionally involved in their pain. Because when you become emotionally involved, you have a tendency to step in and rescue them from their pain and thus deny them of a learning experience. You deny them of a chance to suffer great pain that might force them to finally change. So practice detachment. Let them fall down and experience their own consequences. If you continue to deny them these natural consequences, then there is no motivation for them to change their life and seek help. Sometimes pain is the only motivator that works, and sometimes even that fails. God uses the same method. He lets people wallow in their sin, hoping that one day they'll wake up and say, "Why am I sleeping in a gutter? This is stupid." Hoping. God lets Israel suffer, not happily, but as an incentive to get their attention that they might seek him. And it worked in Judges for 400 years, over and over and over. But finally, the nation became so callous it stopped working.